Measurement of length and motion. Deepa, a curious 11-year-old girl, lives in a town of the state of Haryana. The new school year has started. Deepa needs a new uniform since she has grown taller. Her mother takes her to a cloth shop. She asks for a 2-meter cloth piece. The shopkeeper measures the cloth using a metal measuring rod. Then the tailor takes her measurement using a flexible measuring tape. Her mother instructs the tailor to increase the length of her uniform by 4 angula, 4 fingers width. Deepa shares her experience with her school friends Anish, Hardeep, Padma, Tasneem, and this leads to a discussion amongst them. How do we measure? Hardeep says, I have seen my grandmother measuring cloth by length of her arm. Have you ever seen how a farmer measures length to divide his field into beds? He walks and counts the number of his strides, says Padma. Oh, not just the length of the strides. Sometimes they also use the length of their feet to measure, adds Anish. Deepa says excitedly, measuring length using body parts must be so much fun. Let us also measure something using a body part. What should we measure? Okay, let us measure length of the table in our classroom, says Tasneem. Padma adds, and which body part should we use to measure it? Deepa says, let us use our handspan. I will show you how to use it. I have seen my mother using it. She calls it balisht. Hardeep adds, okay, let us also note down our measurement. Padma says, oh, the number of handspans is different for all of us. So what can we say about the length of the table? But why should the number be different? Hardeep asked thoughtfully. Tasneem says, I can guess. Our handspans are of different sizes. Anish gives an idea. Let us check this. So all 5 of them put their handspans along each other and arrive at the conclusion that the length of their handspans are different. Deepa says thoughtfully, no wonder people use scales and measuring tapes. Deepa and her friends compare the length of the table with the length of their handspans. The length of the table is expressed in terms of their handspans. Here the handspan used for measurement is an example of a unit, and the length is expressed in 2 parts, a number and a unit. For example, if the length of the table is found to be 13 handspans, then 13 is the number and handspan is the unit selected for the measurement. However, handspans and other similar units such as length of hand, foot, fist or fingers different from person to person. Thus there is a need for such a unit for which measurements of the same length made by different people do not differ. India has a rich history of measurement systems dating back to ancient times. Angula, finger width, multiples of angula, dhanusha, and yojana are some of units mentioned in ancient Indian literature and used in measuring artifacts, architecture, and town planning. The angula is still used by traditional craftspeople like carpenters and tailors. Several objects with ruled markings, which could be scales, have been excavated from sites of the Harappan civilization. Standard units. Several systems of Units evolved with time in different parts of the world. However, when people started traveling from one place to another, it created a lot of confusion. This led to the different countries coming together and adopting a set of standard units of measurement. The system of units now used is known as the International System of Units or SI units. The SI unit of length is meter. Its symbol is small m. A meter scale is shown in the figure. 1 meter is divided into 100 equal divisions. Each division is called a centimeter. Small c, small m. You may be familiar with a smaller part of the meter scale, typically 15 centimeter long, shown in the figure. Look carefully at the 15 centimeter scale. It has markings in centimeter from 0 to 15. The length of any section between two consecutive big marks, such as between 1 and 2 or between 5 and 6, is 1 centimeter. Observe that these sections of 1 centimeter length are further divided into 10 equal parts. The length of one of the smaller parts is called a millimeter. Small m, small m. 1 mm is the smallest value of length that you can measure using this scale. 1 mm is equal to 1/10 of a centimeter. 1 mm is equal to 0.1 centimeter. Would it be convenient to use the unit meter to measure larger lengths, such as the length of a railway track between two cities, or to measure smaller lengths, such as the thickness of a page of a book? For measuring larger lengths, we use a larger unit called a kilometer, small k, small m, which is equal to 1000 meters. And for measuring smaller lengths, we use units such as centimeter or millimeter. 1 kilometer is equal to 1000 meter. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeter. 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeter. Would it be convenient to use the unit meter to measure larger lengths, such as the length of a railway track between two cities, or to measure smaller lengths, such as the thickness of a page of a book? In some scales, you might have noticed another scale marking. The scale marking is in inches, where 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeter. In earlier days, units such as inch and foot were used to measure length. These units are still used by some people. A boy says, suppose we all measure the length of the table again, but this time using a meter scale. Will our results still be different? A girl says, no, but we should first learn the correct way of using a scale to measure length. Correct way of measuring length. For measuring any length, we need an appropriate scale. For example, if you want to measure the length of your pencil, you may use a 15 centimeter scale. Similarly, if the height of a room is to be measured, you may need a meter scale or a measuring tape. You cannot directly measure the girth of a tree or the size of your chest using a meter scale. For such measurements, flexible measuring tables such as a tailor's tape is more suitable. While measuring lengths, we need to take care of some points. What is the correct way to place the scale? Place the scale in contact with the object along its length as shown in the figure. What is the correct position of the eye while reading the scale? For example, if you are trying to measure the length of a pencil by aligning it with a scale, the position of your eye should be directly above the tip of the pencil. How to measure the length of if the ends of the scale are broken? If the ends of the scale are broken or the zero marking is not clear, it can still be used for measurement. With such a scale, use any other full mark of the scale, say 1.0 centimeter. Then you must subtract the reading of this mark from the reading at the other end. For example, in the figure, the reading at the one end is 1.0 centimeter and the other end it is 10.4 centimeter. Therefore, the length of the object is 10.4 centimeter minus 1.0 centimeter is equal to 9.4 centimeter. How do visually challenged students measure lengths? They use scales with raised marking that can be felt by touching them. Let us measure. Select some objects around you, such as a comb, a pen, a pencil, and an eraser to measure their lengths. Measure their lengths one by one using a meter scale and note down the measurement in the table. Why are some length measuring devices made up of flexible materials? While writing the length, do not forget to write the unit also. Thus, your result will consist of two parts. One part is a number, and the other part is the unit of measurement. Some of your friends in the class would have measured the length of the same object. Compare the lengths measured by you with that of your friends. Are the measured lengths the same or slightly different? If not the same, discuss the possible reason for the differences. Units of length such as kilometer, meter, centimeter, and millimeter begin with a lowercase letter, except at the beginning of of a sentence. Their symbols kilometer, meter, centimeter, and millimeter are also written in lowercase letters and are never followed by s for the plural. Note that a full stop is not written after the symbol, except at the end of a sentence. While writing the length, always leave a space between the number and the unit. Measure the length of a curved line. Anish and his parents fixed electric string lights on the arches of the veranda of their house, as shown in the figure, for a celebration at home. How would they have measured the required length of string lights? In the case of a curved line, measurements can be made with the help of flexible measuring tape or by using a thread as shown in the figure. The thread can then be straightened and its length can be measured using a meter scale. Desc- Describing position. One day the teacher informs her students that she has planned an educational visit to a nearby garden. She asks the students to reach there directly in the morning. Deepa and her friends start discussing whether the garden would be closer than their school or farther. Tasneem and Padma say that the garden would be closer, while Deepa and Anish feel that the school would be closer. Hardeep thinks that both would be almost at an equal distance. Who do you think is correct? All of them are correct. Then why are their observations different? They are locating the distances of the school and garden from their houses. If instead each of them had thought of distances from a same object or point, say the bus stand, then their observations would have been the same. When distance is stated with respect to a fixed object or point, then this point is called a reference point. A few days later, Hardeep tells his friends excitedly, "Let us all go to the playground. The sports teacher wants us to help her to draw lines with chuna powder, limestone powder, for making the kabaddi court for the sports day." Padma, we will need a longer measuring tape. Let us take it from the sports room. Deepa, let us first decide the point on the ground from which we will measure the distance to start drawing the lines. Let us call this our reference point. After a few days, Padma was traveling by bus to visit her grandparents in Delhi. She was eager to reach Delhi and was reading the kilometer stones on the side of the road. On one of the kilometer stones, it was written Delhi 70 km. Further on, the next kilometer stone read Delhi 60 km. Each kilometer stone indicated to her that she was getting closer to the grandparents' house. What do such kilometer stones indicate? How could Padma conclude that she was getting closer to her destination? These kilometer stones indicated her distance from Delhi. So Delhi is the reference point in this situation. In the kilometer stone reads Delhi 70 km as shown in the figure. We can say that the position of Padma is 70 km from Delhi. When the kilometer stone reads Delhi 60 km, the position of Padma is at 60 km from Delhi. Does this mean that the position of Padma with respect to the reference point is changing with time? When when does the position of an object change with respect to a reference point? Does it change when an object is moving things? Let us explore. Look around and prepare a list of 5 objects that are in motion and 5 objects are at rest. Think about how you decided whether an object was in motion or at rest. Write your explanation, justification. Compare and analyze your justifications. How can one decide if an object is in motion or at rest? An object is said to be in motion if its position changes with respect to the reference point with time. If an object is not changing its position with respect to the reference point with time, it is said to be at rest. Deepa looked around her in the bus and noticed that all the passengers were seated. She looked around again after a minute and found them still occupying their seats. She wondered, are they moving? She concluded that the position of the passengers was not changing with time. Therefore, they were certainly at rest. However, when she looked outside, she felt they were in motion, as their positions were changing with respect to things outside. The reference point is important in deciding whether an object is at rest or in motion. If Deepa considered herself or the bus as the reference point, then passengers were at rest. However, if she considered any object outside the bus, say a building, as the reference point, then passengers and the bus were in motion. Suppose you are traveling on a ship which is moving at a constant speed along a straight line on a calm sea. Suppose there is no window on the ship. Is there any way that you can determine whether the ship is moving or is stationary? Types of motion. Let us explore. Take an eraser and drop it from a certain height. Observe its motion. Does it move along a straight line? When an orange drops from the tree, does it move in a straight line? Have you seen the Republic Day parade? Recall the march past of students during the parade. Do they move on a straight line path? When a heavy box is pushed, it may also move along a straight line. When an object moves along a straight line, its motion is called linear motion. Identify such linear motion in your surroundings. But do things always move along a straight line? You might have enjoyed playing on swings and merry-go-rounds. Are these types of motion also linear motion? Let us investigate. Tie an eraser or a potato at one end of the thread. Hold the other end of the thread with your hand and whirl it. Observe its motion. Is the motion of the eraser the same as that of merry-go-round? When an object moves along a circular path, its motion is called circular motion. Let us investigate. Tie an eraser or a potato at one end of the thread. Hang the eraser by holding the other end of the thread. Keep your hand steady. Using the other hand, take the eraser slightly to one side and then release. Does it start moving to and fro? Is its motion similar to the motion of a swing? When an object moves to and fro about some fixed position, its motion is called oscillatory motion. Let us investigate. Take a thin metal strip of about 50 cm long. Hold its one end pressed to a table. You may use a few books or a brick to hold it. Press the free end of the strip slightly and let it go. Observe the motion of this end of the strip. Does it move up and down? This is also an example of oscillatory motion. If an object repeats its path after a fixed interval of time, its motion is said to be periodic. When an object is in circular motion, it moves along the circular path again and again. An object in oscillatory motion also repeats its motion while moving to and fro. Both circular and oscillatory motion are periodic in nature. Let us identify. Look at the picture of a children's park or visit a children's park. Observe different kinds of motions. Classify them as linear, circular, and oscillatory motion. List them in table. Give your justification for why you put each in a certain category. Summary. The International System of Units (SI units) has been adopted by countries as standard units of measurement. The SI unit of length is meter. Its symbol is small m. 1 kilometer is equal to 1000 meter. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeter. 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeter. When distance is stated with respect to a fixed object or point, then this point is called a reference point. An object is said to be in motion if its position changes with respect to a reference point with time. When an object moves along a straight line, its motion is called linear motion. When an object moves along a circular path, its motion is called circular motion. When any object moves to and fro about any fixed position, its motion is called oscillatory motion.